Let me bring in NBC's Maura Barrett, also joining us, retired ATF Special Agent in Charge and MSNBC terrorism contributor Jim Kavanaugh, and former Secret Service Special Agent and MSNBC law enforcement analyst Evie Poumpouras. Evie, I know that the folks at the Secret Service do work with the Department of Education for far too long, but necessarily school shootings and how to deal with them have been an all hands on deck for law enforcement kind of situation. We heard from the police chief that they train just about quarterly to do something like this. Just 2 weeks ago, commanders had another training. Tell me what, as a professional, you heard that was important in that press conference just now.
So they gave us a lot of information, although there was some information they didn't share. And historically, U.S. Secret Service has worked with the Department of Education. One of the things that they strive to do is to prevent these. The Department of Education has gone to the U.S. Secret Service historically in the past and said, can you help us identify these individuals beforehand? Is there a way to prevent these things? Are there any common factors? And over the years, the U.S. Secret Service has done analysis on these individuals of what to look for. Now, a couple of things that were discussed in this briefing that were brought up. The police did advise that they found the suspect, it sounds like from what he said, already deceased. So that tends to fall in line with what we often see in scenarios like this, where the shooter may die of self-inflicted gun wounds. So that is a possibility here that we're seeing. It does tend to happen in some of these situations. If they're either not faced with police may find them. You have to also keep in mind that these shootings happen very, very quickly, within seconds or minutes. So we're looking at 5 individuals. They're not telling us exactly who. You are looking at a school K through 12. It was brought up if there were metal detectors. You know, a lot of schools don't have metal detectors. And there is also a little bit of that psychological effect of, is it good to have metal detectors in school? There's going to be a lot of psychological trauma for the students post this event. You have to understand, too, it's not just the shooting itself, but it's the trauma and the psychological aftermath that the students go through. They're doing now up to 3 clearings. So they did their first clearing going through the school. You have to think about that process, and it's quite traumatic for the students. You know, how do they know it's police? How do they know it's safe? What should they be doing? And then you're having a second clearing, and now they're looking at a third clearing. And that's another interesting thing, because he said that they're doing a sweep of the area for explosives. So they want to know, did the shooter have any explosives? Is there anything in their vehicle? Are you going to go to the shooter's home to see if there are any devices in the home? Another thing that they did let us know is that it is a juvenile, and that it is likely a student from the school. So now that begs the question, why? Were there motives? Did this student articulate in advance, tell anybody in advance, post it or share it? One common thing we do see is that before we have a shooter engage in a scenario like this, they often share it with somebody in some way, shape, or form. They have put it out there. So that will be another thing to look for in this scenario.
We do know, Jim, that they'll be talking to family and friends of the suspected shooter, who again is deceased, a self-inflicted gunshot wound, because, at least according to police, the police did not fire a weapon there. Certainly they'll do analysis of any computers and any social media sites that he may have had. But on scene right now, Jim, and we heard the police chief saying that we are going to work hard to find out what happened. What are they doing on scene toward that end right now?
Well, they'll do a normal forensic crime scene examination, which is, you know, the medical examiner looking at the bodies. They're going to have to recover any projectiles that are in the bodies at the medical examiner's autopsy. They're going to, you know, determine how many rounds were fired. They're going to photograph the victims, the placement of all the bodies. They're going to placement of the killer. Then they're going to try to determine, you know, how he got in or she got in, you know, and then walk the whole thing back into what we call, Chris, a psychological autopsy of the killer. In other words, go back 90 days, even 6 months, or even more, depending on what they're finding, to what's in the mind of the killer. Because what you see in these cases so often is a suicidal ideation, and you see here it ends with a suicide. So it's a a suicide and homicide together. And the person goes wanting to kill themselves, but they want to exact their revenge or send their message or get noted or become infamous while they're doing it. And there's signs that leak out. I mean, on 77% of the shooters, we know from the FBI study that leakage before the event happens. They tell friends, they post it on the web. Others hear of their intentions, or they say, I want to shoot up a school, or I'm going to get even with these people, or whatever. And of course, you have a juvenile and you have firearms involved. So ATF special agents are on site, as they are at all these things. They'll be doing an urgent trace of the weapon. But in half of the shootings that involve children like this, the weapon comes right from the home. It's the parent's weapon, or even a grandparent's weapon, or sometimes even the child's weapon that's been given to them as a gift. And they just take the weapon from home and come to school and create all this horror. So, it's the same lesson we don't learn over and over. Guns aren't secured in the home from juveniles who have, emotions that they are not fully grown. They're not fully developed in their brains. They have all these emotions. It's normal to be emotional as a teenager. We all are teenagers. It's the way it works. But then when they have access to firearms, that are and they're unsupervised, you can get this kind of card. And so it's the same lessons. We just don't want to learn them in America.
Yeah, and we don't know how old the student might be, because this is a full-level school, so it starts at kindergarten, goes through 12th grade. Some of the things that we may be learning, and we should mention, if you missed the press conference that we just heard, that the public information officer is expected to brief again. We don't know exactly when. But let me go back to Maura Barrett, because, Maura, I understand the school is posting for the first time on its Facebook page.
Yeah, Chris, they just posted a statement asking for prayers, saying prayers requested. Today we had an active shooter incident at ALCS. We're in the midst of following up. We will share more information as we are able. Please pray for our Challenger family. Again, this is a private Christian school serving about 200 families in the East Madison area. It's a 28-acre campus, and as you mentioned, serves all grades. And so this is something that they are obviously processing, as police said that they quickly put up a reunification site for parents and families to be able to immediately come and reunite with their children as they responded. Now, police also said just in a matter of minutes of that very short press conference, it started with one report of loss of life and then got updated in the middle of it. And so we know that 5 people have died. 5 people have been transported to the local hospital with a range of injuries ranging from minor to life-threatening, is what we were told. We don't have details on how many of these people are students, teachers. The only thing we do know is that the juvenile that is believed to have been the shooter was found deceased by police in the school. The police chief emphasized that police did not fire any of their own weapons. And I know you were discussing that as well. And so this is something they said is still an active investigation, though they did emphasize they don't believe there's any further threat to this school or any of the public school district locations in the area as well, but they're going to continue to sweep both the school and all of the cars surrounding in the parking lot to make sure that there isn't anything that they might have missed. And in terms of that next update from the Madison PIO, we expect that to be around 2:30 Central, so 3:30 Eastern, in the next couple of hours. And so we hope to get more information about the injured, the deceased, but they said they can't share any more information until they get more information to the families of those that have been affected. Chris.